Welcome to Salt and Light Songs, a series where we sit down with musicians to reflect on stories of people who have been salt and light in different vocations. This is just one part of a four-part conversation with singer-songwriter Zan Fiskum. If you're just joining us, check out our Substack for the full story. And if you're back, welcome. Let's jump in.
Hey, Zan, great to see you again. I think the last time we met was at Wedgwood in Franklin last November, right?
Yes, great to see you as well.
You know, I used to have a very much more hands-on role with the Wedgwood events, a little more distance. I'm chairman of the board, but no longer overseeing it. And so I know Drew Shirley is our primary liaison to the music industry.
hmm
And how did you get connected to Wedgwood? What was your introduction? Was it through Drew or
Yeah,
somebody else?
I got connected so I worked with Tyler Chester to produce my last album, and he had briefly mentioned over email, like, hey, familiarize yourself with this group Wedgwood. And it was kind of crazy because I didn't tell Tyler that I just reached out and was like, can you do my album? And I don't know if he just assumed that I needed money. And some support. He was like, oh, this girl, she needs help. But he's like, hey, familiarize yourself with this group. And, this is kind of what they do. You'll probably at some point talk with my friend Drew, and which I did while I was at the studio. So I left the session. We're in the middle of recording, and I talked with Drew in a back room, which was really fun to get to know him. And yeah, he's a really wonderful person. And I know him a lot better than I did at that initial awkward phone call of me stumbling over my words. Yeah.
Well, we were so glad that you were able to make it out. I know you're not based in Nashville. You're one of the rare
hmm
musicians that are very comfortable living and performing and working outside. Where do you live again? What's your home
I am
community?
north of Seattle, so the city's called Marysville.
And I just would love to have you, maybe instead of me this time, giving a sense of what was Wedgwood like from your perspective, having walked in there, performed, but then part of a community. What did you sense? What was Wedgwood to you while you were uh, and part of a community?
Yeah, I mean, it was wonderful. I think I definitely was like, what is happening? Because I walk into theater that they're presenting TV shows and movies, and then I'm walking around. I see all of these different things, and I was like, what do you guys do? I should have known. But then it was actually cool because I stumbled upon a few presentations where I recognized what they were talking about, and I just thought it was really powerful to see the investment in creativity and people who are making a spectrum of things, but all to glorify God, some that are blatant, some that are not as much. And so I just thought that was pretty powerful and connected and resonated with me, because that's what I do. I'm making music, and it's not always blatantly
Yeah,
talking about the Lord. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
yeah. So I think gets to both what Wedgwood's for, and that's to support artists like yourself, and it's a bit about your own calling and question as an artist. So, for those of you all that don't know, we're here with Zan Fiskum. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Pronouncing right?
Yeah.
Fiskum. And Zan is a singer-songwriter, and I think put on one of the most compelling live performances I've seen in a long time, which is what really
Thank you.
attracted me to invite you back. Um, and I'd love you to kind of share your own backstory. Like, how did you get into the music world, and what's been
hmm
your journey navigating that as a person of faith as well?
I know. Well, I grew up in a musical family. My mom is a voice and piano teacher for classical stuff. And then I was involved in theater very heavily as a young person. And when I was 12, just giving you the full, overview, because it's kind of important to the story. But when I was 12, I got extremely involved with the worship team at our church. And to kind of tie it all in to other things that I'm sure we'll talk about, when I was 12, I went to church, and somebody prayed for me, and I was healed of a mental health battle. And that same morning, someone was like, I feel like you're supposed to audition for the worship team. And it just was a powerful day for my life, because I think God just like opened up the heavens, and there was so much freedom, and I became so passionate about music, and I was writing like crazy, faith-based stuff, non-faith-based stuff. And yeah, I started gigging in high school and college very heavily. And then in college, I was actually flying back and forth. I went to school in Florida. I was flying back and forth from Florida to Washington for shows with my band, and other bands I was playing in. And then I ended up, dropping out and getting employed at a church. And I kind of had this desire within me for a long time to pursue music at a greater capacity and level than I was. I really hadn't put out a lot of the stuff that I was writing. Like I'd put out some worship music, and then I played in bands as the keys player, background singer, all kinds of stuff, But for my own stuff, I hadn't really kind of taken that leap. And I went to a concert with a friend. And I just remember watching this performance full of envy. Like I was so jealous of the girl on stage who was singing. It was Lennon Stella. She's amazing. And yeah, I just felt like almost like in pain watching her perform. And my friend leaned over to me and was like, you could totally do this, And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, I mean, if you ever wanted to go for it, I think you should. And that apparently snapped something within me. And I quit my job. I just really went like all in. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And I ended up auditioning for The Voice and making it to the top 9 and getting all these opportunities as like a person starting in the industry. I got to go like do multiple shows with John Legend and like things that are like, oh, that's not really how it usually works when you're starting out, which was pretty awesome. And yeah, that I went full time with music in 2019. So however long that is, I've been on the journey.
You heard in our time together in Nashville, this was a bit of a focus on Gen Z and I'd say the opportunity maybe within this generation, which apparently is seeking signs of transcendence. It's embedded in so many fantasy and other kind of stories, but really looking for I'd say deeper meaning and a desire for the soul to be spoken to. So that was the focus of Wedgwood, and I think to some extent part of what we heard again and again from the young Gen Zers who were there, or middle-aged Gen Zers, 25 to 30,
I know,
was
right?
authenticity is like the key. And so that's one thing I think you felt very comfortable kind of sharing and on the stage is authentically your own story and your struggle. Talk a bit about that in your own music and how you've seen that connect to audiences.
I know. I think it's a little bit innate to who I am. And sometimes I laugh with my husband because I'm an oversharer. That's just who I am. And that's kind of like in joking terms, but I think I've always, ever since I was young, been very comfortable with more of the real conversations of like, no, but like, how are you actually doing? What's going on? And I think that people, it's funny because that sometimes rubs up against some people as too much. And I think you're right, though, that a lot of young people are just looking to be able to be honest and real about, like, everybody has really painful things in life. Why can't we just say it and be real about where we're at? So in some ways, it's been a great thing as a performer, because it kind of opens up this door for people to be able to connect with you and just feel like they can relate. And that has been a very cool thing. I've been extremely honored to share some very vulnerable stories with people. And I've had people tell me that this man was like, I decided to reconcile with my daughter because of you. I haven't spoken to her in 10 years. And I've shared a very vulnerable story about my own challenge with parental relationship. And so sometimes I'm like, this feels like a lot to be so open with people. And then I see the fruit of it. And what I would actually say feels like a ministry, even though I'm not, again, specifically talking about God, but it has literally opened up people emotionally to be so vulnerable. And I don't always know, but I can see people like sob at my shows sometimes. And I'm like, I think that something good is actually being opened up within you. Like you kind of needed to let that go. So